Have you ever taken a step in life that everyone around you called a mistake, but deep inside, you knew it was the best thing that ever happened to you? That's exactly what I'm about to share. Because, yes, she was my wrong step, but without question, the sweetest one ever. From the very beginning, people warned me. They told me to stay away, to think twice, to follow logic instead of feelings. And maybe they were right. Maybe it didn't make sense on paper. But here's where it gets interesting. Sometimes the heart sees things, the mind can't. And in that moment, I chose to follow my heart. Now pause for a second and think about this. How often do we regret the decisions that go against the rules? But what if one of those decisions gives you something that feels priceless? That's what happened to me. The world called it a wrong step. But every memory with her proved to me it was the sweetest chapter of my life. Because it wasn't just about attraction or excitement. It was about the way she made me feel alive when I thought I had forgotten how to. Every word, every glance, every laugh. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. And that realness, that honesty of the moment, that's what made it unforgettable. And here's the twist. The sweetest things in life often come with risk. And, yes, being with her was a risk. It cost me doubts, sleepless nights, even whispers from people who never understood. But if you ask me today whether I'd take that step again, my answer is simple. 1,000 times, yes. Because that so-called wrong step gave me something nothing else ever did. A piece of happiness I can never replace. But hold on. Don't think the story ends there. Because the real reason I call it the sweetest one ever goes beyond happiness. It's about the lessons she left me with. Lessons I never would have learned if I hadn't taken that chance. And trust me, those lessons changed the way I see love, life, and even myself. You know, people often say mistakes only bring pain. But with her, my so-called wrong step, the truth was completely different. Because from her, I didn't just get love. I got lessons that shaped me into the person I am today. Because the first lesson she gave me wasn't wrapped in comfort. It was wrapped in challenge. She showed me that love isn't always easy. It demands patience, trust, and sacrifice. And though at times it felt heavy, the sweetness of those moments came from knowing it was real, not fake. Think about it. How many times do we stumble into something we're not prepared for, only to realize later it was preparing us for everything? That's exactly what she did for me. She was the unexpected test I never thought I needed, but in the end, she was also the answer I didn't know I was searching for. When I look back now, I don't remember the warnings people gave me. I remember the way she changed my silence into laughter. The way she made even the dullest days feel alive. That's the sweetness I carry with me, even long after the world stopped calling it a mistake. But here's the twist. What truly made that step unforgettable wasn't just the joy, it was the courage it gave me. Because once you survive a so-called wrong choice that turns out so beautiful, you stop fearing what others think. You start trusting your own heart more. And that trust, that self-belief, has stayed with me ever since. And let me tell you, when I say she was my wrong step, but the sweetest one ever, it's because she left me with something no one else could. Not just memories, but a deeper understanding of what it means to love, to risk, and to grow. There's something I realized only much later. That so-called wrong step with her didn't just change my days. It changed my entire view of what love actually means. Because before her, I thought love was about perfection, about things fitting neatly together. But with her, I discovered it was about imperfection, about accepting the mess and still finding beauty inside it. Because it wasn't the easy moments that made me call her the sweetest one ever. It was the hard moments, the times when things didn't make sense, when nothing went according to plan, and yet, being with her still felt like the most right place to be. That's when I knew, sometimes the wrong step takes you to the right path. Think about it. How often do we wait for the perfect person, the perfect time, the perfect situation? But the truth is, perfection doesn't exist. What exists are those raw, real moments where two people meet, collide, and somehow change each other's lives forever. That's exactly what she was to me. And here's the twist. That wrong step taught me the value of risk, because if I hadn't taken it, I never would have known what it feels like to be truly alive. I never would have tasted that kind of joy, or carried those lessons into the future. So yes, maybe it was reckless. Maybe it wasn't what others wanted for me, but it was sweet in a way no safe choice could ever be. Because what makes this story even more powerful is that the sweetness didn't end when the moment ended. It stayed. It lives in the way I think, the way I choose, and the way I see love today. And that lasting impact, that invisible gift, is the reason I can never regret the step I took. And yet, there's still another side I haven't shared. A side that explains why that wrong step will always remain the most unforgettable part of my life. Here's the part I never admitted before. The real reason I call her my sweetest wrong step is because she opened a side of me I didn't even know existed. She made me feel things I thought I was too guarded to feel. Things like vulnerability, trust, and that quiet kind of happiness that doesn't need words. Because most of us live behind walls, we protect ourselves, we hide our softest parts, and we only show the world what we think is safe. But with her, those walls didn't matter. She walked right through them, not by force, but by simply being real. And that's why I say, even if it was the wrong step, it was also the truest one I ever took. Think about this. How many people come into our lives and leave without ever touching the core of who we are? But she did. She left fingerprints on my soul. And that's not something time can erase, no matter what anyone says. That's the kind of sweetness that lingers long after the story has moved on. And here's another twist. That step didn't just change how I saw her. It changed how I saw myself. I realized I was stronger than I thought. Brave enough to take risks, open enough to love without guarantees, and human enough to accept that sometimes the best things in life don't come with approval. Now pause with me for a moment, and imagine if I hadn't taken that step. I would have stayed safe, yes, but I would have missed out on the kind of love that rewrites who you are. And that thought alone is enough to make me grateful for what others still call my mistake. The story isn't just about the sweetness of the past. It's about how that one step continues to shape the way I live today. And that part is even more powerful than the memory itself. What makes that step unforgettable isn't just what it gave me back then. It's how it still lives inside everything I do today. Every time I take a risk, every time I trust my feelings over my fears, I remember her. She taught me that sometimes the steps people label as wrong are the very steps that lead us closer to our truth. Because it's not just about a memory of love. It's about how that memory shapes the future. Even now, when I face choices that scare me, I think of that moment. I ask myself, what if I had never taken that chance with her? And instantly I know fear may keep me safe, but it will never let me grow. Think about it. We often regret the things we didn't do more than the things we did. And if I had avoided that step, yes, maybe I would have avoided some judgment, some whispers, some complications, but I would have also avoided the sweetest kind of happiness I ever felt. That's the trade most people don't see. the beauty hidden inside the so-called mistake. And here's another twist. That wrong step gave me courage I never had before. Courage to love without a map. Courage to accept the unknown. Courage to stand against what people think is right. And that courage still pushes me forward, even in moments when doubt tries to hold me back. Now pause with me and imagine if life was only about playing safe, about never stepping outside the lines. Would we really feel alive, or would we just exist? For me, that one step answered the question. Because with her, even if it was messy, even if it was wrong in the eyes of others, it felt more alive than anything else. There's still something even deeper about that step. Something that explains why I'll always call it the sweetest one ever. And that part I haven't shared yet. Here's the part that makes this story different from any other. The real reason I call her the sweetest wrong step isn't just because of what I felt with her. It's because she changed the way I see love forever. After her, I stopped chasing what looked perfect and started valuing what felt real. That shift, that awakening is the gift she left me with. Because most of us believe the sweetest love is the one that lasts forever. But sometimes the sweetest love is the one that teaches you forever lessons, even if it doesn't last. And that's what she was to me. A step that looked wrong to the world, but gave me truths I'll carry for the rest of my life. Think about it. How many people walk through our lives without leaving a mark? And then there are those rare ones who come in, break the rules, and leave behind an imprint that never fades. She was that rare one for me. And that's why, even today, I can't call it a mistake. It was a blessing disguised as a wrong choice. And here's the twist. She taught me that love isn't measured by approval or by how long it lasts. It's measured by how deeply it changes you.